So welcome everyone to RPA Summer School 2022 for the Studio module. We're very glad to have you here today. And this is the community team which will be assisting you today. Apart from us, there will be some colleagues from UiPath Academy. Maybe in the chat you will notice them. So we have my colleague Loredana Ifrim, which is marketing community manager at UiPath. I'm the global manager for marketing community. I'm Christina. And my colleague Rohit, which is the regional community manager for APAC. And now the real stars of this session, we have our MVP trainers, of course, today with us. So we have Frank Shikora, which is Chief Digital Officer at Roboyo. We have Divya with us, RPA consultant for data and cybertech. And of course, Stefano Negro from Italy, also UiPath MVP 2022, which is RPA tech lead for DSP consultants. Some households for our session today, since the session will be quite long and since we expect quite a high volume of attendees. We apologize from the beginning for keeping you on mute throughout the session. We will enable the function for you to unmute yourselves during Q&A. But within all this time, you will be able to post any question and discuss within chat, since all of us will be there to support you. So we will have the support trainers in chat and the community staff in chat as well to help you with any questions you might have. The meetup will last about an hour and a half. You are encouraged to network, of course, and share your profiles in LinkedIn and ask any question you would like. We apologize for keeping you on mute, and just for you to know, there will be some fun too. We will have some Menti quizzes today. It will be split in two parts, one in the middle, one towards the end, 4 questions in total, and we will have 3 UiPath voucher prizes to give for these Menti quizzes today. So be sure to keep attention and pay very close attention to the session today, to what Frank will be presenting, to the comments in chat. And we wish you a very nice session today. We are glad to have you here learning with us. And now I'm going to hand it over to Frank to start the session. Frank, you can unmute yourself. Okay, wait.
I think now I couldn't. I think now it should be fine.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Yeah, I hope so, right?
Yes.
Awesome. All right, cool. And thank you so much, Christina, for the introductions. And I'm super excited to get this program kicked off. Only the first session of 4, right? So what we'll be looking at today, and I will shortly share my screen, is basically give you an introduction into RPA and talk a little bit around what is RPA, what can it do, go a little bit through the UiPath platform, and the end to give you a little bit of a broader look of where basically RPA fits within the larger scape, but also in the larger scape of the UiPath platform itself. Give some real world use cases. I've brought with me a video that actually shows a use case that is being done. And again, give you just the starting point of information, right, to give you the quick head start. And then I will jump over to Divya, who will then jump into the action, as I want to call it, right? So we'll give you a first overview of a simple use case within the studio. But now let me share my screen. And let me know when you can see just a quick audible. Yes. Awesome. All right. So let's start. Introduction to RPA. So this will be a little bit of a slideshow fest. Like I said, this is then a little bit boring part, but I think there's so much information out here that is important to understand and to get you started correctly on the journey. So we want to say, what actually is RPA, right? So RPA is really a technology that enables a software program to mimic human actions while interacting with computer applications to accomplish required tasks. Some human interactions that can be automated are. And there we go. This is already a sentence that already gives a lot of good information in terms of where RPA starts and where it also still sits today. So we mimic human actions. And this is one of the major advantages when we are talking about the RPA part. Before, automations have been around for quite a while, but now we really go down to what everything a human can do is also something that we can do with RPA. We can do also things beyond that, but this is something that we will go into a little bit later on. So for one, let's start with the easy parts, right? So keyboard inputs is something that can always be automated. It can be done by RPA. Mouse movements and clicks, so even drag and drop is something that can be achieved with RPA. And I think one of the big parts, and this is something that also propelled the technology forward quite a bit, is actually reading out computer screens, and that being via different methods, right? For one, connecting directly to an application and then reading out the code that is on the screen, or then also via OCR or computer vision to really bring those computer screens to life and make them readable for an RPA robot, or then from what we will be seeing from within the studio, right? So these are the major three parts that basically are the essential basis of everything that we want to do with RPA. But like I said, there's a lot more that can actually be done. So when we really go into what is RPA in terms of, we heard that we can mimic the human interaction. So that is one big part. But what is then some of the advantages that RPA really brings with it? So for one, it doesn't make mistakes and it can do it without resting. And this really means the 24/7 part is something that is very important for an RPA bot, so to speak, right? If we are talking about processes that can be automated, this is one of the major parts in terms of capacity that RPA brings, right? Because a bot will work tirelessly, it will not complain, and it will not make errors in terms of input errors or something else, right? So this is a big part. It is quick to implement and powerful to scale. And this is really something I'm seeing a little bit, a little error on the screen at the moment. So I think somebody painted a little bit there. Overall, quick to implement and powerful to scale, to get back to that. So from an implementation standpoint, it obviously depends on the use case. But what we normally see, and also within our project, it can take anywhere from 2 or sometimes even less, but 2 to 6 weeks to implement RPA use cases. And this is quite fast for also the complexity that you can achieve with an RPA process. Then if you take into the equation that there is also a lot of modularization that you can do within RPA, and that is always part of RPA. So reuse workflows that you already built. Once you get started, it will only get faster from there. And the scaling part, and this is something that UiPath brings with it, naturally, being it via specific queues, for example, so a special technique to really make it super easy to deploy a process across different robots, across many different robots, and let them work together on a single process or on different processes. This is quite unparalleled in the overall RPA world. The other big part is operates any application. And this is really something that cannot be underestimated. I have yet to come to an application that really cannot be automated using UiPath. Overall, some applications are nicer to automate, some applications are not so nice, and there's a little bit more work needed, but overall, everything can be automated. And then we're talking not just about modern web applications, but also legacy terminal applications, Java applications, everything you can think of is something that can be automated with RPA and UiPath in this case. And then structured reading and actioning data. And this is really something that helps in terms of almost every process needs an input to get started. There's always data required to do something. And this is something that UiPath excels it in terms of the input management, being it via the normal structured data, which is the easiest part, I would say. Think of something like an Excel file, for example, that a robot then reads out and actions then and takes actions on the data that is contained within that Excel file. Or if we want to go a little bit further, then down along the line, I already mentioned OCR, so optical character recognition, or then even to the IDP part, so intelligent document processing with document understanding. So there's a lot of steps to be taken from the easy part that we will be talking a little bit more in these sessions now. So from the studio, the base RPA, I would say, and then moving out to the more exciting technologies, I would say. So what is RPA not? And this is something that is not as prevalent anymore as it maybe was before. But what RPA is really not, it is not a walking and talking robot or humanoid. It is not warehouse robots, and it is not a real human replacement. It is actually more around, and again, when we're talking about maybe a little bit of larger use cases, about bringing humans then still back in with the human in the loop part to be able to actually interact with humans through the robots. I also seen, because I also see this a little bit more often when where actually real physical robots were automated using RPA technology, but this is something that is done a little bit outside of the normal scope, right? As a proof of concept too, we had a little BB-8 that we then actually controlled using UiPath, right? But overall, it is a software that automates on an application level. Let's dig a little bit deeper into what can robots actually do, right? So we already heard a little bit of the overarching themes. So what can we actually do within RPA? So we said we can automate any application. That means in this case also logging into any application. This is already a good pointer towards the modularization that I quickly talked about. The log into any application is normally really the first thing that you modularize, right? If you have a login to an SAP or any other system that you can think of, this is something that is either already there, maybe even potentially on the marketplace, or something that you would build out and can then reuse and don't need to build again. This is quite powerful in terms of then scaling and operationalizing an RPA initiative. We can move files and folders. This is also very down to the core, and moving files and folders is not only coming through to the normal file system, right? But also files and folders in between then emails, for example, is also something that can be done with RPA and UiPath. Read and write to databases, that is something that will be coming up more and more depending on the maturity, or also maybe directly in the first use case, because at some points data, like I mentioned, will have to be read and will have to be persisted at times. And we can basically connect to any database that you can think of, right? So the easiest is obviously SQL, but you can also connect to Oracle databases, Mongo, to Azure databases. So there is a lot that can be done directly and natively from within UiPath. We can scrape data from the web, and this is something that we'll be seeing later on in the demo. But what that actually means is you have a website or even an application that you can then just target with specific activities within the UiPath Studio, and then read out the data in a structured way. And this is maybe one of the most amazing features that I've seen, to be able to very quickly get data in a structured way out of being it an application or out of a web application. So this is something that I've seen evolving also over the years. But it still amazes me, because yes, there were parts that, or there were programs that could do this before, but this requires a lot of work. With the UiPath, it's most oftentimes really just a click and you get all the data that you want out of a screen. We can connect to system APIs and also other APIs. So that really means you can directly use PowerShell, for example, if we're talking about a Windows environment. If there is any other API that can be used for different systems or to connect to different systems, and this is also something that is within the scope directly of UiPath. There's a very robust wizard, for one, that you can use to actually, again, interact with APIs, to build up a catalog of commands for that API, or you can also directly program it. We can extract content from documents, PDFs, emails, and forms, like I mentioned before. So for PDFs, if PDFs are digitally native, right? So if they're printed as PDFs, there are direct activities. If they are scanned, then this is something where UiPath also provides the correct tools to read those PDFs out. To read the PDFs out, get the data out, and then take actions on that data. We can open emails and attachments. This is one of the most commonly used scenarios in terms of how do we get actually input for our process. This is sending an email to a mailbox, and then the robot picks up the email, reads out whatever attachments are on there, being it again an Excel, a PDF, or something else, and then takes action on this one. And the next part is also we can make or do calculations within UiPath directly. So that UiPath is built on .NET. So there's already everything that you have in .NET as a function can be used within UiPath, but there's also activities that help you with those calculations and decisions that need to be made then if some calculations are done. So there's everything there that you maybe know out of different or other languages in terms of if then else decisions, loops. There's a lot that you will be also hearing in the later sessions then coming on when we go deeper into the actual UiPath Studio. So if we take a look at the UiPath platform, the three main and core components are the Studio, which we'll be taking a look at again in these coming sessions. This is used to design automation workflows visually with minimal use of code. Actually, right now, you can also use a lot of code if you would want within the Studio. So there's there's a native support for basically everything that you can think of, like VB.NET, Java, Python, C#, everything you can put into the Studio, but that's not the normal use, I would say. Normally, you rely on the activities that are either provided by UiPath or then also third-party activities that are provided on the marketplace as packages. And this is also something that Divya will show a little bit later on in terms of how can you manage those packages and where could you find them. So from the Studio, when we designed our workflow, we deploy it then to the Orchestrator itself. And the Orchestrator is used to control, manage, and monitor the robots. So this is really where then you take the scripts that you developed and deploy them to the Orchestrator. And there you basically do the mapping of what is a job, which queue does it use, how often should it run, and also do the monitoring in terms of, does it run correctly? Are there any errors that are coming in for my automations? All of that can be done directly within the Orchestrator that is included in the UiPath platform. When all that is set up, the execution part is then done on the robot, right? So the robot is really there to execute the workflows and instructions that we designed within the Studio, right? So this is then, the script will be downloaded towards the robot. And when we basically have it on the robot, the same script really that we developed within the UiPath Studio will then be executed on one robot, or like I mentioned before, potentially also multiple robots, right? So, and this is really the three core components that you basically start your journey with. There are a lot of other components, and this is something that I want to talk about now a little bit. I want to allude to that because there's a lot to take in terms of what UiPath is actually offering. So if we take a step beyond the normal RPA and take a look at the UiPath end-to-end automation platform. And please, for now, I really just want to give you a quick outlook. What is there? Because it is a lot. So basically, when we take a look at the UiPath platform, we have 6 different categories that we take a look at. So we have discover, right? This is really about discovering what to automate and how, and then basically get an ideation process going. So there's, for one, there's a part around process mining, which then really helps you to take a look at specific data and get automation ideas out of that specific data, most often log files out of different applications. There's the Automation Hub, which is a really great tool to get ideation going, to build your own community, to build your own marketplace within the company. But this is, again, something that is a little bit outside the scope for today, but I really want to mention because it's a great tool. Task capture is something that I want to mention specifically because this is something that can help to get an automation started. We will take a look at that a little bit more in depth on a later slide. And then also task mining, which is a little bit like process mining in reverse, where it's basically you install an agent on a computer and that will log to a certain degree all the actions that a user take, and then basically build with the help of AI a complete process map of the processes that people are doing, which is also quite an interesting tool. Then for the build part, what we already have, there's the StudioX, which is the more citizen developer oriented part of the Studio, right? Which has great features, but some features are a little bit smaller in terms of, for example, error handling and I would say how you can build a process, right? It's very capable, but it's not there for the huge end-to-end use cases. This is then where the studio comes into play. So if this is something that you plan on doing, you're in absolutely the correct place to get it started on there. And then the part around document understanding, which is really around the whole part of OCR, IDP, so processing documents, reading out documents, getting structured data out of forms or out of invoices, all that part. From a managed part, again, Automation Hub can be there to help you really structure your process and manage the process of ideation and many other parts. Orchestrator, we already talked about. Cloud Platform basically is here to really give an outlook. The Orchestrator can be deployed on-prem, but UiPath also offers a very cool and robust cloud platform where basically you have everything as a software as a service offering that you see here. Everything can also be consumed, almost everything can be consumed directly out of the cloud without having to worry about on-premise infrastructure costs. The AI Center is something that is quite unique in terms of what UiPath can offer here, because what you have here is basically you can deploy and run your own AI or machine learning scripts directly within the AI Center, and then just use it as a simple activity directly within the UiPath Studio, which is very, very, very cool to see. The test manager, this is something that comes up more and more now in terms of test automation, which is also a big part of RPA in terms of either application testing, which basically means if you have new releases for a software, RPA and UiPath can help to actually test those releases, or it can also be used in direct RPA testing. So to test your scripts that you develop to make sure that they are running as expected. From the run part, we have a distinction between the attended and unattended robots. So when you think back to the core 3, the robot part there is mostly seen as the unattended part. So unattended really means the robot is running in its own session, so to speak, and like the name mentions, unattended, nobody is actually looking at it. The attended robots is something that is more as an assistant, you can almost think of, right? Where there's different smaller automations most of the time that help you also in your day-to-day business to create automations that make you faster,
Hello?
basically.
Oh, hang on a second.
Yes.
Hi, Chris. Hi. Yeah, not too bad. So I'm sort of listening to some training things, I think.
Okay.
Well,
okay. I think that was not not for us. All right. I will continue then. So the AI robots is then really the part where we go into more of the document understanding and the execution of the scripts that we mentioned, and then testing robots can be used in conjunction with the test manager. Then we have Engage. Engage is, I talked around the AI fabric is basically the AI center in this case. So just saw the question. I think this was a good time to answer it. Exactly. For the Engage part, this is really where people and robots work together. I mentioned this quickly beforehand. So there is a component directly within UiPath that helps you really build out forms and interactions between your robots and the humans. If there are, for example, some decisions that need to be made that cannot be made directly by a robot, this is something that you can do within the Action Center. We have a really cool tool that is within the UiPath platform, which is called Apps. And this is also, I have a small demo there where you can actually build low-code applications that also, again, can be used to interact with humans or to give a completely new interface, right? To bring together data out of different applications. We have also chatbots within the platform as a partner product, and something that is quite new but pretty exciting are the integration services, which basically helps you interact with other software as a service applications. Like if think of a ServiceNow, Salesforce, or even an SAP that is hosted within the cloud, where you have direct and focused activities to help you interact with those applications directly from within your UiPath. And again, this can also then be used directly within the studio. And the last part is Measure, where there's actually embedded analytics to give deep insights into the metrics. And this is where Insights comes into play. And there's also a little slide that goes a little bit more into detail here. So all I wanted to tell you here is Studio is always the beginning of the journey, but there is a lot more that you can explore within the UiPath platform. I think this is one of the most exciting parts around this. This has grown a lot beyond RPA. RPA is still a great starting point, a great tool to go forward, but then there's a lot more that you can explore within the platform. Christina, do you want to mention something? Because you are muted. Okay, good. All right, then quickly, task capture. So why I wanted to mention this is always because if you find a process, documenting a process is always something that is very, very, or can be very time consuming. And task capture is really something that can help you accelerate the business process documentation by recording the workflows, right, in detail, providing a rich toolkit to refine the results and letting you share the documentation across the business, right? So what you can actually do with task capture is you can sit down, there's a recording functionality, you can do your business process, you can do annotations like you see here, you can do swim lanes, right? So that basically means you can do the business process mapping to build out this process diagram that you can then use to automate with, basically. You can use the recording, you can edit it easily if you need some parts where you have decisions, where you have branches. You can share the documentation. This is also something that you can do then within the automation hub, and then actually leverage integration. So this is maybe one of the coolest parts then really around the task capture is you can either directly export it within the studio to have some skeleton code already there that helps you then accelerate the development, or basically to create a PDD, so a process definition document out of what you have recorded with task capture. And this is really something that is a great tool that helps you accelerate basically when you have your first process done and you're not quite sure how to actually document it. There are templates in there which are best practices already also provided by UiPath to help you start to get that journey really started. So this is really quite cool. This is a tool that is easy to use and really actually quite powerful in what it then can put out. So I think this is something well worth looking at in terms of documenting processes and then again giving then either an output in form of a PDD or then an output also directly within code. There's also trainings on there in the academy. So something that is again a very, very cool tool, and again, just to show the breadth of technologies and support that you actually get from UiPath. Apps is something that I just want to quickly show you. So this is just a quick demonstration of how quickly you can actually build an application within apps. So this is something that you will get familiar with when you actually start your training journey, the WI application. So what is basically happening here is we want to create an overlay. That overlay will get values in the background. A robot is triggered, and that robot will then basically put in the data that we put in here. So we see we put labels and then data fields in. And then we will basically push these data points to a robot. The robot will put them into the application and then return the output from the file, right? And this is, again, just a basic example of what apps can do, but this is also more a little bit around ideation, basically, to give you an idea of what you can do with this, because obviously there can be larger use cases behind this, right? So what we see here, right, there's now a binding that you do basically to tell the process that you then trigger in the background, what are the actual values that will be given into the process. Here we now see that we have a start process that is then basically linked to a process within the orchestrator. We now see it here, we give in 432, 343, that is now put by a robot into the application itself. And we see the 495, 587 is basically what the robot read out and then gave back to the app itself. And you see here, it was a little bit sped up, but honestly, this was built within, I think, 5 minutes, right? And this is really the speed that you can expect also from building a larger application. as an overlay for something else. Obviously, if we want to have integrations in there and query different systems, there will be more work required. But overall, apps is such a cool tool that actually helps you build out human interactable parts within your workflows, even to start it maybe, right? The other part I quickly wanted to go in, and not just because of this awesome animation, but I think Insights is such a cool tool within the UiPath stack that gives you so much value for basically what you're putting in. So it is directly connected to the Orchestrator, and there are basically two major parts around Insights that help you then also understand how your automations are running. So for one, we have operational data points. So that could mean errors, utilization, success rate, or duration of being it now single items or also complete processes that you can see. And then you see you have great out-of-the-box dashboards there on the right. So for example, the operational performance dashboards where you can see something like hours saved, how big is the utilization of your different robots, right? Which processes run the most and stuff like that. And then also all of this on a timeline, which is just such a great insight also to help you when you go into more of the run phase, right? So you build your first application or process, you deploy it, then you let it run, but then you also need to understand how good is it actually running, right? So, and this is where Insights really shines because again, it's directly within the UiPath platform. It's directly connected. There's a little setup needed, but really just a little. And then if the out-of-the-box dashboards maybe are not enough for your use case then anymore, you can still build out your own dashboards and connect also different data sources. So this is a very powerful tool within the stack. And the other part, right, outside of the operational data points that we have is basically business data points, right? Because like I said, there's always two sides to an automation that is running. For one, how good is it running? And then the second part is what good does it do basically for the company? So the business case. So what we can see there is an ROI, right? So your return on investment, because every automation brings value in different parts, right? One of these parts could be a value that it brings in terms of hours saved, something like this, right? And this is then where you can also put in a number to generate or to understand how much money was saved by the robot freeing up time, how much time was saved for people that they can spend then on, I would say, more meaningful tasks, right? Or also what are the process outcomes overall for your processes. Again, this will not be part of these sessions now, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of an insight into what is there on the UiPath platform, because again, there's quite a lot and there's quite a lot of exciting stuff that will be on your journey then when you start from the studio part out, but then when the processes are there, the processes are running, there will be a lot more to actually look at. That would be it as a quick platform overview. And what I now want to quickly do is go through some real world use cases and give you an idea, basically what could be some processes and some process areas that you can then take a look at. So for one, some examples where RPA is deployed in business departments today, right? So it could be deployed in the educational department, right? So in the enrollment process, in an attendance robot, scheduling meetings by robot. We've done that actually because sometimes it is not quite as easy to schedule meetings as you would think. And yes, there are other tools out there, but then again, those cost money. And this is then something that a robot can quite nicely do. A robot can answer queries. There's library robots with alerts in terms of if something is basically landed out too long. We can look at something like supply chain, inventory management, invoice and contract management is something that is done a lot with RPA. And this is then something of the more advanced use cases that we can take a look at. IT is something that is quite big actually within the RPA automation space in terms of server and app monitoring or routine and maintenance monitoring. I've done this quite some time now where there are so many routine maintenance and monitoring tasks that are still done manually by some of the systems administrators or even database administrators that can be very nicely automated using UiPath. For HR, payroll automation, onboarding and offboarding is something that is very prevalent just because of there are so many systems oftentimes within an organization and not all of them have a direct connection basically. And then there's so much manual work still there, being it in onboarding or offboarding, when you want to actually give people access to the systems, the correct access, and so on. In client services, so address changes is something that is actually, or even just the core data management is something that is very much within the RPA grasp. And then also scheduling appointments. This is something that we've done also a lot actually in terms of when an email or something else from an appointment form comes in, that the robot will then automatically schedule and also interact with the client. In accounting, obviously, accounting reports, reconciliations, this is something that can be done quite nicely within RPA, or also the account creation, right? If you want to create a new vendor or even a new customer. In the operations itself, order creation and update is something that that an RPA bot can do very nice in terms of there's a good workflow for it. Basically, again, structured data in, the bot creates the order. If there are some questions, again, we can bring humans in to make some decisions to maybe create a new item that is not there now, and then give it back to the bot to basically finish up the task, create work orders, create work order requests. Basically, you can see the scope is almost limitless for what you can do with RPA. And this is everything where there's still manual work can be done with RPA. And then some of the parts that are already automated can be optimized also by using RPA. And especially then, if you think of the broader platform, then within the space of UiPath, there's also a lot more possibilities beyond RPA. Here, I just want to give you a quick glimpse into a more complicated use case, just again to give you a little bit of an outside view. So serious adverse events, this is something that we actually automated for intake and reporting perspective. So this is something when there are clinical trials, it is very important that if there are serious adverse events, so that means if something went really wrong within the test group, that this is noted down and really basically done very, very fast to make sure that not something is missed and that there's no consequences out of that, right? This required a lot of manual processing, evaluation, reporting to ensure the adequate analysis of the trial performance then. And really what was the case here is the employees struggled to process the vast volumes of data in real time, which resulted in a process that was very slow, quality management issues, and represented a sustained compliance risk that was there because, again, this needed to be completed very fast. So what we did there, right, we created a technical solution combining RPA, Action Center, and OCR, or document understanding in this case, to make sure that basically Action Center acts then as the orchestration layer together, the invocation reports together, create the task is obviously then done in conjunction with the robot. Document understanding to really read out the data, structure the data, and then put it forward to robots, and then obviously UiPath as the automation engine for the data entry and validation. So really what this was, email reports could come in, paper-based reports could come in. The data was extracted from the case or the report. The case was then entered into the database. The case was evaluated, and then an initial report is created. And this was then also verified within the Action Center because the verification part is still something that needed to be done by a human. So again, this is just to give you a little bit more of a view of how those more advanced use cases can look, because they often then require a combination of the different technologies that are all directly within the UiPath stack. This is maybe something, again, going for the smaller part of where RPA can be used to the larger part. And this is really something, a successful RPA project in one department, and this is really then the major part around this, will naturally spread across the organization. I've seen this now so many times. There's so much excitement when an RPA project goes live. This will really go through the whole organization, and then at some point there will be also almost no stopping it. This is then the good part where ideation, prioritization, and pipeline management comes in, right? And this is maybe illustrated best by this honeycomb effect. Basically, to drive the cost department, adoption is really something that you need to do in terms of then go to the fully automated enterprise, right? There are then the departments like the finance and accounting, the contract center, the IT automation, the legal and contracts, supply chain and HR that we already talked around a little, but you see there is a lot more in there. And like, and what this basically means, if you start a great job in enterprise scheduling, even if it is within the IT automation, this will permeate outside of that, right? And if you have then adjacent parts, this is then something where you will see when you start, there's almost no stopping an automation initiative that has been started with RPA and with UiPath in terms of where it will go, because all of these parts that we see, and I will not just read through all of them, but basically everything that you see here is something that can be automated within the UiPath stack. And I think this is the one thing that I really wanted to highlight here. RPA and UiPath is not confined to a single use case or even a single business department. This is really something that can affect the whole enterprise and will affect the whole enterprise then in the end. Now that I can actually show something, I just want to give you a quick demo in terms of how it will actually look. So this is an RPA bot that is interacting with an SAP system, basically where we give in, again, we read out data there before with an IDP, document understanding solution. This will now search for that specific case within the SAP. It will do some configurations first in terms of it needs a certain number to be able to get in there, right? Then it opens the case. Within that case, there will then be some parts that need to be verified by the robot in terms of, this is the part where it makes calculations. It reads out basically if the right time frame is given, what can be done. And then in the end, the robot will now actually check if the insurance was actually valid for that time. And if all of those are good, then it basically already really goes to the invoicing part and basically pays out the amount that is due for the customer in this case, right? So, and this is something that is done a lot and often a day. This particular use case is actually processing around 2,500 invoices per day of the same kind, right? And this is again something that is a little bit more of a real world use case that you see here of where it could go, right? But this is something, again, hardcore or very much RPA focused with a little bit of IDP put on top. So, benefits of RPA. Major advantages of RPA adoption are the increased execution speed, right? Because like we said before, a robot can work depending on the system, but can work faster than a human, and it can work tirelessly. So this will already create a faster process. It has enhanced accuracy because, again, a robot will not get tired and will basically do the same thing over and over again if nothing else happens with the input data or something else. We improve actually regulatory compliance because, again, with the enhanced accuracy comes a better compliance. And also we have a lot of ways to actually audit and report what the robot has been doing. By this, we are reducing the cost of process executions, basically with all the three of the other parts combined. And then we have easier scaling because, you know, if you have to onboard a human, the human needs to be trained. If you want to onboard a new robot, this is something that goes a lot faster in terms of installing a new robot, deploying the process, done. It will do it the same as it's each of the other robots. And I think this is something that should not be underestimating in terms of if you really want to scale your process, or if you have large processes that need to process a huge amount of data and tasks. This is really the one part that brings RPA home here in this case, just in terms of how easy it is. For one, like I mentioned, we are looking at around 2 to 6 weeks to actually create an RPA process, and then it is up and running. And then if you need to process thousands, tens of thousands, however many, the only part that you need to do is basically scale scale the robots. And there are also some parts that we won't go into today, but there are also scaling options then within UiPath for the robots directly, where you can use an auto scaler with different technologies. But again, might be going a little bit too deep. Just wanted to mention that there's basically no ceiling to what you can achieve then within RPA and the UiPath platform. And the one thing that I wanted to mention here, and why it is really good that you are here and you are in the right place to start your journey with the UiPath and with the studio. Basically, everyone agrees, and including also me. UiPath leads as a product within the RPA space, but like I mentioned before, also outside of the pure RPA space, let's say. So when we're talking more about intelligent automation, vision, strategy, and execution. And this is really what we wanted to show here in terms of the different analysts, really all agree. If you take a look at Gartner, UiPath is the leader. If we take a look at Forrester, UiPath leader, IDC, UiPath leader, and Everest, UiPath leader. And this is really something that I can also say with confidence also from my project experience. UiPath is a great tool to start and also to grow with, right? To really get your journey started and then go from there, explore the whole platform, and basically automate more and more within the automation space and within the platform itself. And I would give over now. I already put it on screen, but I would give over now to Christina again. This will conclude my part of the presentation. I hope I could give you some insights, and I hope it was not boring to give you really the overview. The demo itself to show you a little bit of the studio and go a little bit really deeper into what will then also go into the next coming sessions will be done by Divya. So thank you so much for listening, and I wish you a really, really exciting journey with the rest of the RPA Summer School program, and then also with the rest of the whole cosmos that UiPath can provide.
Thank you, Frank. Before we start the quiz, I just want to make sure that we give you the links for the following sessions, since some of you, I don't know, might quit this session early and not catch them. So just to make sure you are registered for the upcoming sessions, at least for session 2, then we're going to keep going from that one onwards. Please make sure all of you go to this link and register for session 2. And then we will also give for session 3. These are all the sessions from the studio module of the summer school. So just make sure you are registered into these sessions to keep going with the RPA Summer School studio module. So now we can go into Menti. So to join the Menti quiz, to join the quiz room, you should go to www.menti.com. You can easily go from mobile, and then I'm going to paste the code here so you have it copy paste. Yeah. So you can join from desktop, join from mobile, just to make sure you are in the quiz room. We'll keep watching you here as we enter the quiz room. So we have 13 so far, 14. And we will wait a bit, so don't worry. We will start with these 2 questions of the quiz session, and then we will have 2 questions again after Divya's presentation at the end. Okay, so more people are gathering. Come on, guys, the quiz is easy, so it's nothing too complicated. It's just with elements from what Frank has presented so far. And you will be able to recheck your knowledge also. It will be fun too. A bit of competition never hurts. Okay, the number is still growing. I hope everyone is able to join the quiz room. You shouldn't have any problems. Okay. So I see we're at 90 now. Anyone who wanted to join and wasn't able to? Because I'm going to start the quiz now. Okay, I think we're fine. So let's go to the first question now. Be mindful, Menti is all about being fast with the right answer. So if you are fast, you get more points. So what are the main robot types used with UiPath? We have here hybrid and attended, unattended and attended, unattended and cross-functional, semi-intelligent and unattended. Okay, most of you got it right. Yes, that's right. We have unattended and attended robots with UiPath. Let's see the leaderboard now after the first question. This is dynamic, so it will change after each question, don't worry. And in the end, you will see the final leaderboard. Okay, so we have our top 3 now. Let's see with the next question. What is the benefit of RPA? Decreased execution speed, less accuracy, excellent scaling and reduced costs, same execution speed as humans. Okay, perfect. So we have almost the same number of correct answers as after the first question. Let's see the other leaderboard now, the second one. Okay, so from the top 3, we have only 1 user kept the position. No, none. So all 3 changed. So this shows you how dynamic the Mentimeter is and that all of you still stand a chance. Now I'm going to stop sharing and invite Divya to continue the presentation.
Thank you, Christina. Let me share my screen.
Sure.
My screen is visible now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So here we're just going to quickly see how the UiPath Studio looks like in the beginning, and then I'll walk you through one very simple use case. I'm just going to run the use case, and then we will see how to install the UiPath and how you can kickstart working on the UiPath Studio, right? So this is a very first look of UiPath Studio, where we have the home page. And we have multiple tabs, and I think in our upcoming sessions, you will be going through each and every tab in detail. But with respect to just imitate the use case, which we are going to provide in this session, what you really need is you have to go to the tools and you just have to enable the extension, UiPath extension. So for now, we are using the Edge. So if it is not installed in your machine, it will be as an install option will be enabled for you. You can just go ahead, click on the install on the Edge, and then you can just restart your Edge browser, and there will be a pop-up for the enabling. So you can just go ahead and enable that. So that will help you to run this use case in your machine. And in the UiPath Studio, we do have the multiple tabs. Mainly, we will be using the activities tab for searching of any of the activities. So you can just go ahead and search the activities with respect to the names, and you can just click on drag and drop. So just the drag and drop will give you the window of that specific activity. So, and in your right hand side, you will be having the properties of the specific activity. You can just go ahead and provide properties like the condition, or if you want, like if there are this properties window will be changing with respect to each and every activity which you're choosing. So if there are anything which needs to be given as an input and you are expecting something as an output from that specific activity, you will be able to get all of them from here. And this is how you can just go ahead and use all these activities. And if you just close the specific search, you will be able to see the recent one and the available ones. So based on each and every category, you will be able to find the activities inside of that. When you have installed in the very beginning, I think you will not be able to see all of these things. There will be very minimum number of activities. If you want to install any of the specific activities, the packages, you can click on the manage packages. And then here you can click on the all packages and search for some specific activities you want, like Outlook. And you will be able to get all the Outlook related activities here, and then you will be able to install whatever you want, like from whatever the specific activities you are looking for the package. You can just click on that specific activity and you will be having the install. And if you want any of the specific version, you can click on this drop down, select that specific version, and then click on install. So once you have installed the packages of whatever the respective activities you want, then those specific package will be appeared in your packages list, in your activity list, and you will be able to search with respect to get Outlook, mail message, something like this, and then you can just drag and drop and you can start using. This is how you can start using the activities. Install the packages and start using the activities. And then we do have another tab with respect to the project. The project tab looks like this, where it is just going to give the dependency of that specific project for which we have created so far, and also the structure of the project which we have created. So now this is a very simple process where we do not have multiple XAML files and also the sub folders. So, and hence we do have only this main XAML for which we are going to run, and the supported JSON for this specific project. So this is how it looks like. And we do have multiple options in each tab where you will be having that look in our coming sessions. And one more quick thing is, okay. And we can also here, if you just go back to the start, we do have all the templates from the UiPath by default. So if you want any of the things which you really want to create from the scratch, and if you want to use the existing templates, you can just go ahead and start your project from here, so that you really do not have to worry about mapping the main XAML or creating everything from the scratch. So you can choose whatever the template you want. You can just pick the template and start working on this. So this is how your first look of UiPath Studio looks like. And let's go back and run the very first process, and you guys can have a look how the process works. So here we do have the debug file, and also we do have run file and the run. So for now, I'll be just running this in the debug mode so that you guys will know how the UiPath will be able to communicate with respect to the browser. So I have just started my process, and you will be able to see the output and all the logs in the output panel. So the execution has been started. So now it launched the edge, and it is going to generate the random numbers. So this process is all about generating the random names, and then we are going to take the hexadecimal with respect to that specific names, and we are going to print that. Right? This is a very simple use case where you can just go ahead and imitate the same to achieve the web automation. Have the breakpoint here. So this is how your breakpoint looks like. So if you want to continue, we can just go ahead, click on continue. So this is, since it is running in the debug mode. And it hash generator, it generated the hash. put the name, and it printed for that specific name. The hash code is this. Click on OK. And it is going to pop another name. And it is going to generate the hash code for that specific name. Then we do have another breakpoint. We can just click on continue, and it has been given the hash code. So this was a very quick introduction how easy, like in the UiPath, to communicate with respect to any of the browser, how we can just go ahead and navigate into multiple screens within a very few microseconds, or even I would say the nanoseconds, and copy the data from the screen and put it into the UiPath. So I think we have covered those activities with respect to the UiPath. If you don't want any of the breakpoints, you can just go quickly, just go ahead and run the file. So run the file is going to just run that specific file, whatever it has been opened. But whenever you have clicked on run, it will always start from the main XAML file. This is how the UiPath first look and the very quick introduction of how the quick exercise of communicating the UiPath with any of the other web applications. So hopefully this was good. So let's go ahead and see how we can install the UiPath Studio. If you guys have not installed any of the UiPath Studio, you can just go here to the cloud.uipath.com, and then you can just sign up with any of the emails which are available here. So I'll just go ahead and continue with the email, and this is how we can sign up. I would say I'll go sign up, and if you want to sign up, you will get the registration window. And here you can click on continue with the email, or if you want with the Google email ID or the Microsoft, you can just go ahead. So here I'm just going to give so this will send you one email to your mailbox. You can just go ahead and verify that. Meanwhile, so I'm just doing the verification in the backend. So once you clicked on the verify email, so verification has been completed, and you can provide your first name and last name. Select your country and the state. On next, you can provide your organization name. And create organization. Once you're done with this, it will take just a couple of seconds. And your cloud platform will be populated. And you do have the download studio option right here. So you can just click on this download studio, UiPath Studio, and you will be able to see the download path. for now, I'm just stopping this, but this is how you can just go ahead and download the UiPath Studio and go ahead and install this. This package is going to install your Studio and Report, both of them. So all you have to do is log into your cloud as soon as you download. So you can just ask me any question with respect to the installation and or creating your account with respect to the UiPath Cloud platform. That's all pretty much all to present for the installation and for the quick view of the UiPath Studio from my end. If you guys have any questions, you just go ahead.
Okay, let's see how many managed to get the automation cloud.
Yeah.
Can you please tell us, like, how many of you managed to install? Okay, so some managed. Those of you who were in yesterday's session and did the StudioX, like signed in with StudioX, please, you can switch the profile from settings like you learned yesterday to switch to StudioX. Now you can switch to Studio and use the same.
If you already have an account, you don't have to sign up once again. You can just use the existing one.
Okay, Petros is asking, can we just use the UiPath Cloud platform without downloading and installing Studio? For this session,
Yes, you can.
You can, but now
I mean, yeah.
That would be.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I will let Divya explain that to you, Petros.
You can use it as a product, but to follow the whatever the agenda which we are planning, and if you want to learn the deeper with respect to the UiPath Studio and all, you have to install the Studio so that you can practice your automation end to end, and all of those things can be achieved once you have installed the UiPath Studio. So, but just to use and to have a look and feel, you can use without even installing the Studio as well.
Okay, Raja, if you already have an automation cloud, you don't need to sign up once again because you only need one automation cloud account. So you can use the same, just switch the profile from StudioX to Studio. If you have downloaded automation cloud to use it yesterday with StudioX, now you can switch the profile to Studio. You have the indications in chat provided by Loredana, how to do that. Okay, the difference, so we have two questions about differences, one between Studio and StudioX. So Divya, if you would like to.
Studio and StudioX, the main difference between the Studio and StudioX is the properties, whatever you were able to see as a Studio for each and every activities. Maybe you really do not have to write lot of code with respect to the StudioX. StudioX has been built to make the automation much easier when it comes to the people from the business whoever the subject matter experts, if they want to imitate their process in the very high level, where they really do not want to get into the Java code or the VB code or the .NET code, they can just use the StudioX. But if you really wanted to go for an API calls or with respect to any of the code integrated with respect to your process, then the Studio would be recommended.
Okay, thank you, Divya. And we have another question regarding differences about the differences between Studio Web, between cloud and desktop of Studio.
So the desktop Studio, whatever we had is like we do have from quite long now, and it is very in the staple, and we are able to see all the bots are up and running from the Studio. With Studio Web, yes, you will be able to see most of the same options on the activities, whatever you do have, you will be able to see in the cloud version as well. But I think it is recently just we have launched, I think, an year before or something like that. So I think we will be having more features with respect to more details with respect to the cloud version or the web studio in our coming sessions. But Studio with respect to the desktop is more stable now, and you can just go ahead and integrate with anything, whatever you want. And as Frank said, you can automate anything with respect to the UiPath Studio for now.
Okay. Would you like to continue with the Q&A now, or we have another exercise coming up?
Yeah, we can just go ahead with and complete the exercise, and I'll take these questions once we are done.
Okay. The other questions we have about whether Studio will work on Linux systems.
At the moment, as far as I am aware, no. So at the moment, Studio and the whole UiPath platform, almost the UiPath platform is still Windows native. There's an assistant now for the Mac that can be used, but at the moment, Studio is only used or runnable, installable on a Windows desktop machine.
Okay, so Divya, shall we continue?
Yes, Christina.
For Mac use, you have a special disclaimer on the event link. You must use a virtual machine. I'm going to share again now the link for Mac users.
I just share it, Christina. It's okay.
Okay.
Chat.
So if you look closely at these sessions, we have in all sessions posted resources where you will find links for Academy, links for forum, links to the automation cloud accounts. So check the text and the content of the event links closely, because you will find all needed resources there. So many answers to your questions are to be found there. And of course, we can still answer them on forum. You're in a dedicated thread on forum for Studio. So I will post again the forum thread where you can go starting today and collaborate and ask us questions. So
I think we have one more question with respect to what is the difference between the process and the test automation project. The process automation is where you're just going to imitate your process, whatever the business or SME has been provided by the step by step. But the test automation is going to like whatever the process you have already automated, you're going to define your test cases, you're going to define the couple of cases with respect to the process, and then you're going to run that test automation project to make sure your all cases which you have defined for that specific process has been run complete, so that it is going to make sure the process is running fine as expected for all the use cases which has been expected from the business team.
Exactly, and to expand a little bit on this, maybe this goes in too much into detail, but one of the major parts around the RPA testing part then is also the regression testing, which basically then goes back to you have your test cases that you know should run, then you do a change, and this is then something that can be tested. And with the test automation, you can basically do also the regression testing parts to make sure that not only the changes work, but everything else still works. And this can be quite cumbersome if you have to do it manually. So this is a great way of automating that.
Let's continue with the quiz for now, because I think this is where we are in the presentation. So perhaps we were a bit fast on the last part, and then we will continue with the Q&A, maybe. So let's go where we left off with the quiz. So this is where we left off. This is the last leaderboard. I will wait for you guys to get into the session once again. I will post again the link to the quiz room and the code to get into the quiz room and continue the quiz. Okay. So you have it in chat now. Don't worry, you can also log in from mobile into the quiz room. we get more confirmations on installation, so that's good. Yes, everyone should manage the installation today, because from session 2 onwards, we're going to start using the Studio software. So please let us know either today or in the forum thread what are the problems you encounter with installation. So we can make sure that at least until Friday, we can solve some of them. Okay, great. So I think we're going to give it like 10 more seconds, and then we're going to start the quiz. Yeah, thank you everyone for the confirmations on installation. Okay, that's really nice. Okay, let's start the quiz now. So we're going to go to the next question now, question 3. And remember, answer fast to get more points. So which UiPath component can be used to monitor ROI and operations? Insights, Foresight, Elasticsearch, Throughput. Okay, yes, that's a really good answer. Insights is the one. Let's see the leaderboard after the first question. Okay, so these are the current top 3 users. Let's move to the next question now and to the last leaderboard, which will show us our winners today. What can RPA not do? So this is an exception question. Yes, what can RPA not do? Operate any application, reading structured data, move files and folders, manipulate physical objects. This is a very easy question. It's an exception question, but a very easy one. Yes. And here is the proof that it was the easiest question of the quiz. Thank you very much for participating. Let's see the final leaderboard now and our winners. And for the winners, please DM me in chat your emails. Okay, so we have our winners. It's Yogesh, Daniel, and Ignacio. So please, Yogesh, Daniel, Ignacio, just DM me your email addresses so I can send you the UiPath winner vouchers. Thank you very much, everyone, for participating. And now let's continue with the Q&A. See, someone posted the answers in the chat. So you are able to unmute yourselves now. Please unmute yourselves and ask questions for Stefano, Frank, or Livia. Whoever has any questions that were unanswered or some questions to ask yet from today's session.
From application security point of view,
Hello, Sanju.
Hi, is my voice clear?
Yes, it's clear.
Okay, so as I understand, UiPath is more of a layer on top of the applications on which we want to operate some tasks. So for example, I'm actually working in SAP, so we do we log into the systems, and each of our user IDs have a very specific roles and authorizations attached to it. So when we try to, let's say we want to schedule a job, we can schedule jobs in SAP directly, but let's say I want to do an activity as a scheduled activity, that is unattended activity. So how can I ensure the same level of authorization and security when I use UiPath on SAP?
This is a loaded question. I think overall, when I went into, so for one, there's the orchestrator, right, that you can use for scheduling, make sure that it runs on time. the Orchestrator itself has a lot of security features for encrypting assets, audit logs for whoever is scheduling jobs. You have a role-based access system that you can use to make sure that not everybody can just widely schedule basically any task that they want, right? But that only specific people can basically set a process live. There's also the possibility to create different environments, right? So just separate again between development, testing, and a production environment, if you so to speak, right? So that you have, there's a lot of organization measures that you have that you can employ to make sure that only what you have, what you want to have runs in production. And there's then also the part about code reviews to make sure that basically the script is also just doing what it is supposed to do, right? And then again, the scheduling part is something that can be done in the Orchestrator, which in itself brings a lot of security features. With it, hope that answered
yeah,
the question.
definitely. Yep, sure. Sounds good. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Any other questions for Frank or Stefano or Divya? Come on, guys, this is a wonderful chance to ask the trainers live questions and to clear any misunderstandings from today's session.
Hi, this is Rajagopal from Schneider. Basically, so I just would like to understand how active the community is. If we post some kind of requirements, how fast we get the query answered. So, or do you have any kind of intervention if no one can answer from your team? Anyone will answer and clarify our doubts.
So you are asking about the how fast are the responses on forum?
Yes, that's correct.
Well, I don't know whether we have like an average answer, like reply time now, but usually yes, they get answers, and especially now since you have for this particular program, you have a dedicated thread on forum. So for this particular journey and these 4 sessions, you will get the answers on the dedicated thread. This is why we created it. So you are now working in a group which is dedicated to RPA Summer School Studio. You have a dedicated forum thread. You will be able to work in that thread and ask all your queries there.
Okay,
Yeah, and maybe
yes.
when we go outside of the normal part, outside of the community. So for one, I can tell you in the forum, if you phrase the question correctly, I would say, and it's not like just how can I start RPA, even then you will get answers. But if you have a specific question, I can almost guarantee you that within minutes, somebody will try to answer, right? And then there's also the part when you buy the license or buy a license then of UiPath, then you're also entitled to the direct enterprise support from UiPath with all of those licenses. And there is a direct dedicated support. So in terms of if the community cannot help you, then again, if you're on the other side, I would say, and in terms of when you have bought licenses, there's also commercial support that is then attending to those questions if the community cannot answer them. But honestly, what can be answered in the community is maybe something that is not answerable because it is very active, it is very knowledgeable. And yes, people really strive to make sure that questions get answered on the community forums.
Great, Frank. Thank you.
So maybe for those of you who are not so familiar with the UiPath community, this is, of course, our dedicated website. So we have a separate website. This is the community hub. And you will be able to find here all the resources, of course, link to forum, link to academy, a link to this program Summer School. And you will find here also all our contributors and people who are high contributors to community, like the chapter leaders, the MVP program. Your trainers today are MVPs with UiPath. So these are our highest contributors in terms of community. So I invite you to explore the hub and all it has to offer in community. So I see we have some more questions here. Maybe Gracie would like to ask directly. She's asking whether UiPath apps is used to create prototypes.
Yes, it can, but that's not the, so if you mean prototypes in mock-ups, potentially, but that's not the major use case of apps. What you can really use apps for is, like I said, if you want to create an overlay, for example, of bringing together different applications and querying data out of different applications and then displaying it within within the app, for example, this is something that you can do. You can prototype, but I wouldn't say that's the major use case really there.
Okay, guys, any more questions? I gave like the website link for community and our email address, so you can find us there on those links. Okay. Can you help me with UiPath profiles? Admin, would you like to clarify that a bit? Please unmute and ask directly. Okay.
Hi, it's Grace. Just a quick one about the prototype. Is there any tool specific for you create a prototype, or you can just use the StudioX like normally?
Can you maybe specify a little bit more what you mean by prototype?
So I get one person ask me to get, a prototype a system. So how would they look like? And how the robot will be look like, on the front page.
Like a sample robot, you mean?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
So I'm not sure it's used like Studio, because at the time when it was a website, I used like CSS, HTML to create a prototype for website. But for automation, I don't know if you have like these kind of things, like create prototype for automation. It's weird, but someone asked me that.
I mean, you can use it for that. There's also the form creator within the studio that can help you create forms again, but really create so you can use so the studio directly, not really with apps. You could do that, but again, there I'm not quite sure. I don't know, Stefano, if you have maybe a better answer there.
Yeah, I agree with you. I can add that both in forms and in apps, there is the ability to put free HTML. So you can use CSS and HTML directly to create, let's say, for example, a mock-up website or a dashboard and so on. But it's not kind of what it has been built for.
No, thanks. That's good to know.
Any other questions? We have a question like, during the discovery phase, which solution is best used to get a clear process of what the user does performs? Process mining, task mining, or task capture? So for discovery phase, which of these is best? I think it has to do with the complexity of the process, but I'll let you answer.
Yes. There's also, and if you really want to get the super complete picture, everything, and then you also add on top a real discovery push, I would say it really depends a little bit on how mature your organization is and how good the documentation also of the processes already is that you have. This is already something, if you have something like an RS or good process catalog, this can already help you without employing other technologies. Overall, task capture is really only there if you already have identified something, right, to document it basically. Task mining is something where you always need to see task mining can only capture what one user can do, right? And this is then also a little bit of the boundary of what it can be used for. And the process mining is really more around the end-to-end understanding of processes, and this can give an indication for automations, right? It can help you to see that there is a large delay between certain steps, and this is then something that you could look into automating. So overall, it's almost always a combination of different methods to actually get to a good catalog.
Okay, so I think we can maybe end the session here, just to make sure everyone logged into the following sessions. So I will give again in chat the link for session 2 studio. Yeah. So make sure you are registered for this session coming up on Friday. And we'll see you again on Friday within session 2. Till then, please join the forum thread. You have the link, but I can give it again, of course, for the forum thread, and you can start the discussion there, ask your questions, say what problems you encountered. So please join the forum thread as well. Okay. So yeah, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today, and see you on Friday.